a reading from the writings of Isaiah. Arise, shine, for your light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon you. For behold, the darkness will cover the earth, and gross darkness the people, but the Lord will arise upon you, and his glory will be seen upon you. And the nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes round about and see how they gather themselves together. They come to you. Your sons will come from far, and your daughters will be nursed at your side. Then you will see and flow together, and your heart will fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea will be converted for you. The forces of the nation will come for you. Violence will no more be heard in your land, wasting nor destruction within your borders. But you will call your walls salvation and your gates praise. The sun will be no more your light by day, neither for brightness will the moon give light to you, but the Lord will be for you an everlasting light, and your God your glory. Your sun will no more go down, neither will your moon withdraw itself, for the Lord will be your everlasting light, and the days of your mourning will end. Your people will also be all righteous. They will inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands. But you will be named the priests of the Lord. Men will call you ministers of our God. You will eat the riches of the nations, and their glory will you boast yourselves. For your shame you will have double, and for your confusion they will rejoice in their portion. Therefore, in their land they will possess the double. Everlasting joy will be for them. For I, the Lord, will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. And their seed will be known among the nations, and their offspring among the people. All that see them will acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord has blessed. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul will be joyful in my God, for he has clothed me with the garments of salvation. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decks himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels. For as the earth brings forth her bud, and as the garden causes the things that are sown in it to spring forth, so the Lord God will cause righteousness and praise to spring forth for all the nations.
This being the fifth Saturday after Second Advent Pentecost, we of course continue our readings from the book of God's Revelation. And God's Spirit rested upon the soul of the man transported to heaven. And the man's mind was instructed in divine doctrines not known since the age of the prophets, nor from the time of the advent of Jesus, who interpreted their writings. While at rest in the Temple Mount of the sanctuary, the man did remember with calmness and serenity of mind, as though he were an attentive pupil in the academy of old, that spoken to his soul. And he learned of the eternal struggle on earth over the long history of the human race between the powers of darkness and the powers of light. Darkness and its perpetual efforts to bind humankind to the illusory universe of matter, generated by rebellious angels who withdrew from the Godhead before the sun and the stars and the world were born, inflicts with evil intention certain men who, by the incarnation of dark powers, lead the world astray. These wicked men who deceive, lie, falsify, persecute the good, deny God and the immortality of the Spirit. Subject to darkness, they despise God. They are the robbers of the divine doctrines bestowed upon the world by the righteous ones, sent by the powers of light to alleviate a suffering mankind. They adulterate Holy Writ, thus corrupting the minds and the spirits of men and women, causing them to war against one another. Every day they sacrifice blood to evil causes, a sacrifice that is the death of the races and which perpetuates the error of darkness. This being the case, humanity knows not the true religion perpetuated by the elect of God. It scorns divine law. It persecutes and puts to death those holy ones sent by God and the powers of light to liberate the human spirit. Humankind continues to sacrifice out of fear, rejecting the true God of love, who desires no sacrifice, neither flesh nor blood, not for any reason, either religious, political, or economic, not in churches, temples, or on battlefields. For such sacrifice binds people to the earth and to the powers of darkness which generated it, and separates them from the true God, who is the Father of the Spirit, which is heir to heaven. And the voice of the Lord revealed to the man knowledge and understanding of the eternal races of holy ones, who taught in every land and every culture over the span of 1,000 millennia, endeavoring to liberate the peoples from the bondage of ignorance of God. He learned of the heirs of the Holy Covenant between man and God in Israel, that eternal race of righteous ones who strove to break the people away from the rule of the angel of darkness and lead them to the way of the angel of light. In the latter days of the Jewish nation, before its defeat at the hands of the Romans, the remnant of holy ones who lived apart from the Jewish people attempted to restore the temple and establish true worship, abrogating blood sacrifice. Moses had atoned for the sins of Israel, and as recorded in their literature and sacred scrolls, the struggle to cleanse Israel and institute prayer and righteous living of the true way of God had been thwarted 3 separate times under 3 messiahs. First, under the prophet Messiah of Israel. Secondly, under the priest Messiah of Aaron and Israel. And thirdly, under the lay Messias, a prince of the line of David, come for the salvation of Israel. Each Messias had suffered death at the hands of secular and religious legalists. The Davidic Messiah's ministry was brought to an end by crucifixion, but before his passing from the world of the living, Jesus had proclaimed the coming of a future age of enlightenment, when God would appear in the heavens as a great light, Savior of the whole world. The ancient prophets of the righteous race had prophesied that after the completion of 4 cycles of 7 times 70 years, following the birth, ministry, and martyrdom of the final Messiah of Israel, Jesus, in an age of earthly tribulation, war, turmoil, unrest, and social strife, in an age of apostasy of the professing churches and a falling away from the true doctrines given to the world by those holy ones inspired by the powers of light, the universal messianic age would commence, and God would extend the true bread of life and the waters of truth at the great communion banquet in which all souls would share. In holding to the ancient tradition, the followers of Jesus prayed to God each day while facing the sun at its rising. With hands stretched toward heaven, they implored the Creator to reappear and deliver the world. They asked for his redeeming light that had been withdrawn from the world with the fall of the angels of darkness who had led Adam and Eve into the degeneration of matter. They prayed with humble heart and devout soul for God to reveal himself, to illuminate the heavens with that great light that had glorified Adam and Eve before the temptation. They asked God to incarnate the image of himself in a messianic sun that would shine 8-fold in strength to blind Satan and the angels of darkness and to burn up wickedness and evil for all time. And in their devotion, they invoked the sun to shine favorably upon the world, thus opposing the evil one, the begetter of all human flesh and the generator of mortal life that is subject to impermanence and change in a world of suffering, pain, and sorrow, where all living things eat one another for life and slowly pass away into the oblivion of a deep sleep from which they never awaken. The righteous ones knew that the true God of spirit was not the father of the world, but the creator of spiritual realms removed from mortality, immortal realms of permanent life, peace, and love, where the spirit of every living thing is nurtured by the divine presence. Though the eternal race passed away from the memory of man, it left to generations to come a sacred inheritance engraved on every human spirit to assist them at the coming of God's day in their eternal struggle against the old enemy of man, Satan, whose profoundly cruel and impious act of error annihilates all life, and allows him to rule over a mute and lifeless universe for a time. Satan, not knowing that separation from God must end in extinction of even those dark worlds, which are the offspring of God's adversary, is the soulless destroyer. But God would appear as the heavenly Messiah in the end times of the earth, and his light would be softer than water for the righteous and harder than rock for the wicked. And the man heard that by the establishment of the new covenant of love and mercy, ruled by divine law, God had covered the earth with redeeming light to unite all separated spirits and to restore them to divine order. God had assumed the role of teacher and instructor from the abode of heaven. He has set his power in the seat of the Son to rule over the earth by means of intelligent light and energy beyond the reach of any human and corrupt hand.